The great crystal dome of Nexus 7 hummed with tension as delegates from across the galaxy gathered for what many believed would be the most important vote in centuries. Purple energy fields crackled between the towering pillars that supported the council chamber, casting eerie shadows on the assembled representatives. Each species had sent their finest diplomats, military leaders, and scientists to witness this historic moment. Admiral Thane adjusted his ceremonial armor as he approached the central speaking platform. The Centauri coalition had chosen him to present their case against the humans, and he felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on his shoulders. Around him, hundreds of alien eyes watched with keen interest. The spider-like delegates from the rim worlds clicked their mandibles in anticipation. The floating energy beings from the core systems pulsed with excited colors. Even the ancient rock creatures from the dead zones had sent representatives, their massive forms casting long shadows across the chamber floor. "Honored Council," Thane began, his voice amplified by quantum resonators that translated his words into dozens of languages simultaneously. "We gather today to address a threat that grows stronger with each passing day. The species known as humans has violated our most sacred laws." A wave of murmurs swept through the chamber. The humans had been a curiosity to most galactic civilizations for decades. They had burst onto the interstellar scene with crude fusion drives and primitive weapons, yet somehow managed to establish colonies in 3 star systems beyond their home world. Most species had dismissed them as another short-lived experiment in evolution, destined to burn out like so many others before them. "These mammals," Thane continued, "have claimed entire star systems without seeking council approval. They have established military bases on worlds that should remain neutral. They have refused all attempts at diplomatic contact from legitimate galactic powers." He paused, letting his words sink in. "But most troubling of all, they have begun mining operations in the forbidden sectors near the galactic rim." The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. The forbidden sectors had been declared off-limits for good reason. Ancient warnings spoke of dangers that even the oldest civilizations feared to name. No species had dared venture into those dark regions of space for millennia. Chancellor Voss of the Trade Federation rose from his seat, his multiple arms gesturing dramatically. "If what Admiral Thane says is true, then humanity poses a threat not just to galactic law but to our very survival. Who knows what horrors they might unleash from those cursed regions?" High Priestess Mora of the Temple Worlds nodded her scaled head in agreement. "The prophecies speak of this day. When the young race ventures into the darkness, great change will follow. We cannot allow such recklessness to continue." What none of the council members knew was that their every word was being monitored by Dr. Emma Wright, who sat in her laboratory on Luna Research Station, 24 light-years away. The quantum entanglement communication array she had developed 3 years earlier allowed humanity to observe galactic politics in real time. As she watched the alien delegates debate humanity's fate, her fingers moved quickly across her control console, recording everything. "The evidence is clear," Admiral Thane declared, raising a holographic display that showed human ship movements over the past 5 years. "Humanity has expanded beyond their designated boundaries. They have ignored our warnings. They have shown complete disregard for galactic law and order." Dr. Wright's heart raced as she realized where this was heading. She activated an emergency protocol, sending coded messages to every human colony, military base, and research station in known space. The signals would take hours to reach their destinations, but every second counted now. Back in the council chamber, the vote was being called. One by one, each species cast their decision. The crystalline beings of the inner rim voted for termination. The gas-dwelling creatures of the nebula clusters agreed. Even the peaceful plant people of the garden, worlds known for their compassion, voted to eliminate the human threat. The final tally was unanimous. Humanity would be given 30 standard days to evacuate their colonies and return to their home system. After that, the full might of the Galactic Enforcement Fleet would be deployed to ensure compliance. If humans resisted, they would be exterminated, without mercy. Admiral Rex Stone received Dr. Wright's warning while reviewing supply reports in his ready room aboard the UES Defiance. The message was brief but clear. Council voted death. 30 days. Begin Protocol 7 immediately. Stone's blood turned cold. Protocol 7 was something they had hoped never to use. It meant abandoning their outer colonies and retreating to the Sol system while preparing for total war. More importantly, it meant activating projects that had been hidden from the galaxy for decades. Within hours, human ships throughout the 3 occupied systems began their withdrawal. To alien observers monitoring human activities, it looked like a panicked retreat. Merchant vessels loaded with civilian refugees fled toward Earth. Military ships provided escort, their formations loose and apparently disorganized. The entire human exodus seemed to confirm what many aliens had suspected. Humans were cowards who would run rather than fight. But in reality, the withdrawal was carefully planned. Every ship carried vital intelligence about alien military capabilities. Every refugee transport held skilled technicians and engineers needed for the coming conflict. Most importantly, the retreat bought time for humanity's greatest secret to be revealed. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains on Earth, President Kane stood in a command center that officially did not exist. The massive chamber stretched for kilometers, underground, filled with holographic displays and quantum computers that processed information at speeds that would astound alien scientists. This facility had been built in secret over the past 30 years, funded by resources stripped from the forbidden sectors that aliens feared to enter. "How long until the Shadow Fleet is ready?" Kane asked the assembled military leaders. General Adams consulted his tactical display. "All 12 ships are fully operational, sir. The dark matter manipulation systems are functioning within expected parameters. We can begin deployment whenever you give the order." Kane nodded grimly. The Shadow Fleet represented humanity's greatest achievement and most terrible weapon. Built using technology recovered from ancient ruins in the forbidden sectors, these ships could manipulate the very fabric of space-time itself. They were invisible to conventional sensors, powered by forces that most galactic civilizations had never dreamed possible. Dr. Wright's voice crackled through the communication system from Luna Station. "Mr. President, I'm receiving reports that the first alien enforcement fleets are already mobilizing. They're not going to wait the full 30 days. "Then neither will we," Kane replied. He turned to Admiral Stone, who had arrived on Earth just hours earlier. "Rex, take the Nemesis and 3 escort ships to Proxima Centauri. Begin harassing operations against their forward scouts. Make them think we're desperate." Stone smiled coldly. "With pleasure, sir. When do we reveal our true capabilities?" Kane studied the tactical displays showing alien fleet movements throughout the galaxy. Thousands of ships were converging on human space, confident in their overwhelming superiority. They had no idea what was waiting for them in the darkness between the stars. "Soon," he said quietly. "Very soon they'll learn that some shadows bite back." 3 weeks had passed since the Galactic Council's death sentence, and space itself seemed to be going insane. Sensor operators across dozens of star systems reported the same impossible readings. Massive gravitational distortions moving through space with no visible source. Ships that ventured too close to investigate these anomalies found their instruments failing, their navigation systems scrambling, and their crews reporting strange dreams of darkness beyond the stars. "Commander." Lisa Torres stared at her sensor display aboard the hegemony battleship Void Striker with growing confusion. Her ship was part of the advance fleet tasked with securing the approaches to human space, but the readings she was getting made no sense. According to her instruments, something the size of a small moon was passing through the system, yet her visual scanners showed nothing but empty space. "Helm, adjust course to intercept the anomaly," she ordered, ignoring the worried looks from her bridge crew. The hegemony prided itself on having the most advanced sensor technology in the galaxy. If there was something out there, they would find it. What Torres did not know was that the UES Nemesis was passing less than 1,000 kilometers from her ship, its dark matter hull completely invisible to conventional detection methods. Admiral Stone watched the alien vessel through quantum sensors that could penetrate any known shielding, studying their formation patterns and weapon configurations with cold interest. On Earth, Dr. Wright worked frantically in her expanded laboratory complex. now grown to encompass 3 underground levels beneath Luna Research Station. The breakthrough that had made the Shadow Fleet possible seemed almost impossible to believe, even to her. 32 years earlier, a deep space mining operation in the Kuiper Belt had discovered something that should not have existed. A derelict ship built from matter that interacted with gravity, but remained invisible to electromagnetic radiation. The vessel had been ancient beyond measure. Its builders vanished millions of years before the first galactic civilizations arose, but their technology had been preserved in crystalline memory banks that human scientists spent decades learning to decode. What they found changed everything humanity thought they knew about the universe. Dark matter was not just the invisible scaffolding that held galaxies together. In the right hands, it could be shaped, controlled, and weaponized in ways that made conventional military technology seem like crude stone tools. The ancient builders had discovered this secret and used it to create ships that existed partially, outside normal space-time, immune to most forms of detection or attack. President Kane stood in the war room deep beneath the Rockies, surrounded by holographic displays that showed the true scope of humanity's secret project. The 12 ships of the Shadow Fleet were just the beginning. Hidden construction facilities throughout the Sol system were producing smaller dark matter vessels at an accelerating pace. Automated factories on Europa processed exotic materials into components that defied every known law of physics. Status. Report, Kane demanded as his senior staff assembled around the central display table. General Adams activated a series of tactical overlays. All major alien fleets are converging on our outer colonies as expected. The hegemony is leading with their third battle group, approximately 800 ships. The coalition has committed their first and second fleets, another 600 vessels. The Trade Federation is providing logistics support with their merchant marine converted for military use. Dr. Wright added her analysis. Based on intercepted communications, they expect to complete the elimination of human presence within 6 months. Their strategy is simple: overwhelming force applied systematically to each colony world until nothing remains. And our conventional forces? Kane asked. Admiral Stone's image appeared in the holographic display, transmitted from the bridge of the Nemesis somewhere in the darkness between stars. Captain Davis is making his final preparations at Titan Station. He has 43 ships under his command, including most of our heavy cruisers. They'll put up a good fight, but against those numbers. Kane nodded grimly. The sacrifice of the conventional fleet was a terrible necessity, but it would serve multiple purposes. It would convince the aliens that humanity was fighting with everything they had, while also providing detailed intelligence on enemy tactics and capabilities. Most importantly, it would draw alien forces into positions where the Shadow Fleet could strike with maximum effectiveness. Meanwhile, on the mining world of New Geneva, civilian evacuations continued under the protection of local defense forces. The colonists had been told they were being relocated for their safety, but many suspected they would never see their homes again. What they did not know was that hidden beneath their feet, automated systems were already beginning the process of destroying everything that might be useful to alien invaders. Captain Roy Davis walked the corridors of Titan Station, checking on final preparations for what everyone knew would be humanity's last conventional battle. The massive orbital platform had been humanity's primary military base beyond the Sol system for 15 years, its weapons and defenses representing the best human engineering could produce. Against the approaching alien armada, it would last, perhaps an hour. Davis found Lieutenant Murphy in the communications center, monitoring alien fleet movements with dedicated intensity. The young officer had volunteered to remain behind when the civilian population was evacuated, along with 3,000 other military personnel who knew they were facing certain death. Any changes in their approach pattern? Davis asked, studying the tactical displays that showed hundreds of alien ships moving toward their position. Murphy shook her head. Same formation, same speed. They're not even trying to be subtle about it. I guess when you have overwhelming superiority, tactics don't matter much. Davis smiled coldly. They're about to learn differently. In the depths of space, the Shadow Fleet moved into position with predatory patience. The 12 massive vessels had spread throughout the approach routes to human space, their crews running final checks on weapons systems that manipulated the fundamental forces of reality. Dark matter torpedoes that could create miniature black holes sat in their launch tubes. Gravity cannons capable of crushing battleships into singularities charged their exotic power cores. Dr. Wright monitored the fleet's status from her command center, her consciousness partially linked to the Shadow Fleet's quantum navigation systems through experimental neural interfaces. The sensation of existing partially outside normal spacetime was disturbing but necessary. Human brains were not designed to process the sensory input from dark matter detection systems, but with the right technological augmentation, it was possible to adapt. All ships report ready status, she announced to the war room staff. Dark matter manipulation systems are functioning within normal parameters. Stealth fields are holding steady. The enemy has no idea we exist. President Kane studied the holographic representation of galactic space, where red icons representing alien fleets moved inexorably toward the blue markers of human colonies. In less than 72 hours, the first attacks would begin. Civilians would die. Their homes would burn and the galaxy would celebrate what they believed was the final solution to the human problem. Admiral Stone, Kane said, opening a secure channel to the flagship. Begin Phase 2 operations. Show them what humanity has learned in the darkness between the stars. Stone's response came back immediately, carried by quantum entanglement, across impossible distances. Understood, Mr. President. Shadow Fleet is moving to engagement positions. We'll hit their advanced scouts first, make them think we're using some kind of new stealth technology. By the time they realize what we're really capable of, it will be too late. The war room fell silent as everyone contemplated what was about to begin. Humanity had spent 3 decades preparing for this moment, developing weapons and technologies that would have seemed like magic to their ancestors. They had learned secrets that ancient civilizations had hidden in the darkness between galaxies, mastered forces that could reshape reality itself. Soon, the galaxy would discover that the small, seemingly primitive species from Sol 3 had evolved, far beyond their crude fusion drives and kinetic weapons. The Shadow Fleet carried the power to challenge gods and humanity was ready to use it. In the cold vacuum between stars, 12 invisible ships adjusted their courses toward targets that had no idea death was approaching them through dimensions they could not perceive. The galaxy's greatest military powers were about to learn a harsh lesson about underestimating species that had nothing left to lose. The hunt was about to begin. The victory celebration aboard the hegemony flagship Stellar Dominion was in full swing when reality decided to break. General Korath raised his ceremonial goblet filled with fermented essence from his homeworld, toasting the successful destruction of the human colony at New Geneva. Around him, his senior staff officers laughed and shared stories of the pathetic human resistance they had crushed earlier that day. The battle had lasted barely 2 hours, exactly as their strategic planners had predicted. To the cleansing of the galaxy, Korath declared, his forearms spread wide in the traditional gesture of triumph. May the human plague be remembered only as a lesson in the consequences of defying galactic order. His officers roared their approval, their various alien physiologies expressing joy in dozens of different ways. The spider-like tactical officer clicked her mandibles in rhythm. The floating energy being that served as communications chief pulsed with satisfied colors. Even the normally stoic rock creature from engineering allowed his crystalline surface to glow with contentment. None of them noticed the subtle gravitational distortions that had been building around their fleet for the past hour. Their sensors, designed to detect conventional threats, completely missed the 12 massive shapes that moved through dark matter fields just beyond the edge of normal spacetime. The Shadow Fleet had arrived at Titan Station. Captain Davis stood in the command center of the doomed orbital platform, watching the alien armada approach through tactical displays that showed their overwhelming numbers. 800 ships in perfect formation, their weapons powered and shields raised, confident in their absolute superiority. They had good reason for confidence. The human fleet protecting Titan Station consisted of just 43 vessels, most of them outdated cruisers and converted merchant ships. All stations, this is Captain Davis, he announced over the station's communication system. Enemy contact in 15 minutes. Remember, we're not trying to win this fight. We're trying to make them pay for every meter of space they take. Make them work for it. Lieutenant Murphy looked up from her sensor station with confusion written across her face. Captain, I'm getting some very strange readings. There are massive gravitational anomalies throughout the system, but I can't identify their source. It's like space itself is warped in 12 different locations. Davis felt his heart skip a beat. He had been briefed on Protocol 7 before the evacuation began, but he had not been told when the Shadow Fleet would reveal itself. The timing suggested that humanity's secret weapon was about to make its presence known in the most dramatic way possible. Keep monitoring those anomalies, he ordered, trying to keep his voice steady. And prepare to record everything that happens in the next hour. This data needs to reach Earth no matter what. Aboard the UES Nemesis, Admiral Stone watched the alien fleet through sensors that existed partially outside normal spacetime. The hegemony ships moved in perfect formation, their commanders so confident of victory that they had not even bothered to deploy scouts or maintain proper defensive screens. It was the kind of arrogance that won wars for the side smart enough to exploit it. Target designation Alpha 1, Stone ordered, indicating the massive dreadnought at the center of the alien formation. Range, 40,000 kilometers. Dark, matter torpedo tubes 1 through 4, prepare for launch. His weapons officer, Commander Park, ran through the targeting sequence with practiced efficiency. The dark matter torpedoes were humanity's most devastating weapon, each one capable of creating a controlled gravitational singularity that could consume an entire starship in seconds. The technology was so advanced that even human scientists did not fully understand how it worked. They had simply learned to replicate the designs found in the ancient derelict. Torpedoes armed and ready, Admiral. Target locked. Stone studied the tactical display one final time. Once he gave the order to fire, there would be no going back. Humanity would reveal its true capabilities to a galaxy that had condemned them to extinction. The consequences would echo across civilizations for generations to come. Fire, he said quietly. 4 dark matter torpedoes launched from the Nemesis, invisible to all conventional sensors. They traveled through folded space-time at velocities that made light seem sluggish, guided by quantum navigation systems that could track targets across dimensions. The alien fleet had no warning, no chance to defend themselves, no way to even understand what was happening until it was far too late. General Korath was still raising his goblet when the stellar dominion began to die. The first torpedo struck the dreadnought's central hull section, creating a microscopic black hole that immediately began consuming matter at an exponential rate. The ship's massive armor plating, designed to withstand planet-cracking weapons, crumpled like paper, as gravitational forces beyond comprehension tore it apart from within. The second torpedo hit the engine section, causing the ship's fusion reactors to collapse into themselves in a spectacular display of energy release. The third and fourth torpedoes struck the command tower and weapons array simultaneously, ensuring that no part of the mighty vessel would survive the assault. In less than 10 seconds, the stellar dominion, pride of the hegemony fleet and terror of a dozen star systems, had been reduced to an expanding cloud of superheated plasma. 2,000 alien crew members died without ever knowing what killed them. The celebration aboard the other hegemony ships turned to panic as their sensors registered the destruction of their flagship. Admiral Torres, now in command of the fleet, demanded answers from her tactical staff that no one could provide. The humans had no weapons capable of such devastation. Their technology was primitive, their ships outdated, their tactics predictable. Emergency. Evasive maneuvers, she ordered, her voice tight with fear. All ships, full defensive screens, prepare for immediate jump to hyperspace. But it was already too late. The Shadow Fleet had revealed itself, and there would be no escape from the darkness between stars. The second alien vessel to die was the battlecruiser Dawn's Edge, consumed by a gravity cannon blast that compressed its entire hull into a sphere, the size of a basketball, before allowing it to explode outward in a burst of exotic radiation. The third ship, the destroyer Quick Strike, simply vanished as a controlled spatial rift opened directly beneath it, dropping the entire vessel into a parallel dimension where the laws of physics worked differently. Within minutes, 12 hegemony. Ships had been destroyed by weapons that their science could not explain, and their sensors could not detect. The remaining fleet scattered in all directions, their formation discipline forgotten in the face of incomprehensible terror. Captain Davis watched the slaughter through Titan Station's long-range sensors, his face pale with shock despite his advanced knowledge of the Shadow Fleet's capabilities. The aliens who had seemed so confident just moments before were now fleeing like frightened children, their mighty armada broken by forces they could not even perceive. Message incoming from Admiral Stone, Lieutenant Murphy reported, her voice filled with awe. He says to prepare for immediate evacuation. The Nemesis will provide transport to the rally point in the asteroid belt. Davis nodded, still staring at the tactical display where alien ships continued to disappear into gravitational anomalies. All personnel, prepare for emergency evacuation. The station is to be abandoned in 30 minutes. As the last human defenders left Titan Station, automated systems began broadcasting a message throughout the galaxy on every communication frequency. President Kane's face appeared on screens across thousands of worlds, his expression calm but implacable. To the governments and peoples of the galactic community, he began, humanity has received your verdict and found it unacceptable. You have chosen to judge us without understanding what we have become. You have condemned us without learning what we have discovered in the darkness between stars. The message continued as reports of the Titan Station battle spread throughout alien space. Fleet commanders who had been confident of easy victory just hours before now faced the terrifying reality that humanity possessed technology far beyond anything in their arsenals. We did not seek this war, Kane's recorded image declared, but we will finish it. The galaxy will learn to coexist with humanity, or it will learn to fear the shadows that move between the stars. The choice is yours. The age of human supremacy had begun with the destruction of 12 ships in a minor star, system that most aliens had never heard of. But across the galaxy, military leaders began to understand that everything had changed. The species they had dismissed as primitive had somehow acquired weapons that could challenge the fundamental forces of reality itself. In the depths of space, 11 more shadow ships moved toward their assigned targets, carrying death and darkness to civilizations that had ruled the galaxy for millennia. The hunt was no longer about to begin. It had already claimed its first victims, and the survivors would carry word of humanity's terrible new power to every corner of known space. 6 months after the massacre at Titan Station, the galaxy had transformed into something unrecognizable. The same crystal dome on Nexus 7 that had once echoed with confident declarations of human extinction now housed emergency sessions, where terrified alien leaders begged for mercy from representatives of the species they had condemned to death. Ambassador Kate Morgan walked through the corridors of power with quiet satisfaction, her footsteps echoing in halls that had been built to intimidate lesser species. The irony was not lost on her that she was the first human ever granted access to these sacred chambers, and she had achieved that honor through the simple application of overwhelming force. The Shadow Fleet hung in orbit above the capital world like invisible swords, their presence felt through the gravitational distortions that made the planet's 3 moons wobble in their orbits. The hegemony, rulers of the galaxy for over 2,000 years, had been the first major power to surrender. Their emperor, a being so ancient that his species had forgotten his original name, had personally traveled to Earth to sign the Articles of Submission. The Trade Federation followed, within weeks their commercial interests making them pragmatic about accepting the new reality. Even the proud warrior clans of the Outer Rim had laid down their weapons rather than face the dark matter weapons that had consumed entire battle fleets. But victory had brought unexpected challenges. President Kane sat in his expanded command center, now grown to encompass an entire mountain complex beneath the Rockies, and studied reports that troubled him more than any alien military threat ever had. Humanity was winning the war too easily, and that success was creating divisions within their own species that threatened to tear civilization apart. The Beijing Accords delegation is demanding an immediate ceasefire, General Adams reported, his weathered face showing the strain of commanding a military campaign across dozens of star systems. They claim our actions constitute genocide and violate every principle of human morality. Kane rubbed his temples, feeling the weight of decisions that affected trillions of lives. The Peace faction, led by prominent politicians and religious leaders from Earth's major population centers, had grown increasingly vocal as reports of alien casualties mounted. They argued that humanity had achieved its goal of survival and should now seek diplomatic solutions rather than continued military domination. "What about the colonial independence movement?" Kane asked. Dr. Wright, now serving as director of the Shadow Fleet Project, answered from her position at the Central Control Station. "They want us to press the attack until every alien government has surrendered unconditionally. Their argument is that we can never be safe as long as any hostile alien civilization retains the ability to threaten human colonies." The debate had been raging for months, with both factions claiming to represent humanity's true interests. The peace advocates pointed to Earth's philosophical traditions of cooperation and coexistence. The hardliners referenced humanity's history of conflict and argued that only total victory could ensure long-term survival. Admiral Stone materialized in the holographic communication array, his image transmitted from the bridge of the Nemesis, somewhere in the galactic core region. Behind him, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, monitoring alien fleet movements that had become increasingly desperate as the Shadow Fleet's capabilities became known throughout civilized space. "Status report from the front lines," Kane requested. "We've achieved complete space superiority in 47 star systems," Stone replied. "The Coalition's remaining fleets are scattered and demoralized. Most of their commanders are seeking terms for individual surrender, rather than risk facing our dark matter weapons in open battle." He paused, his expression troubled. "However, we're receiving disturbing intelligence reports from our deep space reconnaissance units. Something large is approaching from the galactic rim, moving through the forbidden sectors where we found the original derelict." Dr. Wright's attention sharpened immediately. Could it be another ancient vessel? Unknown. "Our scouts can't get close enough for detailed scans without being detected by whatever's out there, but the gravitational signature is massive, possibly larger than anything we've ever encountered." Kane felt a chill that had nothing to do with the mountain air circulation system, the ancient technology that had given humanity the power to dominate. The galaxy had come with warnings encoded in crystalline memory banks. The beings who had built the dark matter ships had apparently abandoned the technology, for reasons they had not clearly explained, leaving only cryptic references to watchers in the deep and prices that must be paid. Meanwhile, in the occupied territories, human colonial administrators struggled to maintain order among alien populations who had never experienced conquest before. The spider people of the rim worlds had retreated into their underground cities, refusing all contact with human officials. The energy beings of the core systems flickered between dimensions, making communication nearly impossible. Even the peaceful, plant people of the garden worlds had begun producing toxic spores that made their worlds uninhabitable for human colonists. Captain Torres, formerly of the destroyed Hegemony Fleet, now served as a liaison between human occupation forces and surviving alien governments. Her once proud uniform had been replaced with simple civilian clothes, her military rank stripped away along with her people's independence. She stood in the ruins of what had once been the Galactic Defense Headquarters, watching human engineers install dark matter monitoring equipment that would detect any attempt at rebellion before it could begin. "The resistance movements are growing stronger," she reported to the human colonial governor, a former merchant marine officer named Blake, who had been promoted far beyond his original qualifications. "My people see the monitoring stations as a form of mental violation. They would rather die than live under constant surveillance." Blake studied the reports on his portable computer, trying to balance security requirements with the need to maintain some semblance of normal life for the conquered populations. "What do they want from us? We're not enslaving them or destroying their worlds. We're just asking for cooperation and acknowledgement that humanity is the dominant power now." Torres's forearms gestured in what her species considered a sign of profound sadness. "You don't understand our psychology. For 2 millennia, we believed ourselves to be the inheritors of galactic civilization. We had myths and legends that spoke of our destiny to guide lesser species toward enlightenment. Your victory has destroyed more than our fleets. It has shattered our fundamental understanding of our place in the universe. The conversation was interrupted by an emergency communication from Earth. President Kane's image appeared on all communication screens throughout the occupied zones, his expression grave as he addressed the galaxy. Citizens of Earth and all human colonies, leaders of the galactic community, I speak to you today with news that will affect every living being in known space. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected the approach of vessels using technology similar to our own dark matter manipulation systems, but far more advanced than anything in our current arsenal. The announcement sent shockwaves through both human and alien populations. If the Shadow Fleet represented the pinnacle of military technology, what could be more advanced than weapons that could manipulate reality itself? These approaching vessels appear to be of ancient origin, possibly constructed by the same beings who built the derelict ship that provided us with our current capabilities. We do not know their intentions, but their course will bring them into contact with our forces within 30 standard days. Kane paused, allowing the implications to sink in across dozens of worlds. All human military units are being recalled to defensive positions around our core systems. Negotiations with alien governments are suspended pending resolution of this new threat. We call upon all civilizations, human and alien alike, to prepare for the possibility that we may face a challenge that transcends our current conflicts. The transmission ended, leaving billions of beings across the galaxy to contemplate a future that had suddenly become even more uncertain. The species that had seemed so confident in their technological superiority now faced the possibility that they were children, playing with weapons they did not truly understand. In the depths of space, sensors both human and alien tracked the approach of objects that bent spacetime in ways that defied comprehension. Whatever was coming from the forbidden sectors had built the technology that gave humanity its current power, and their return suggested that the galaxy's new order was about to face its ultimate test. The age of human domination might be ending before it had truly begun, replaced by something far older and more dangerous than any civilization that had ever existed in known space. 2 years had passed since the first shadow ship emerged from the darkness, and the galaxy bore little resemblance to the civilization that had once condemned humanity to extinction. On Earth, children grew up learning about alien species the way previous generations had learned about foreign countries. The night sky blazed with traffic from dozens of worlds, as trade ships and diplomatic vessels carried goods and messages between species that had once considered each other primitive or hostile. Dr. Wright stood on the observation deck of Luna Research Station, watching a formation of hegemony cargo vessels deliver rare minerals extracted from their core worlds. The same species that had voted for human extinction now competed eagerly for contracts with human industrial corporations. The transformation was so complete that sometimes she had difficulty believing it was real. But the peace was fragile, built on a foundation of fear rather than trust. The Shadow Fleet maintained its patrols through every inhabited system, their invisible presence a constant reminder of humanity's overwhelming military superiority. Alien governments obeyed human directives not out of respect or cooperation, but because they had no alternative except annihilation. President Kane, now serving his third term after emergency powers legislation suspended normal election cycles, received visitors in his mountain fortress that included representatives from species that had never spoken to each other before the human conquest. The crystalline beings from the dead zone sat across from the energy creatures of the core systems, while spider people diplomats shared data with rock creature engineers. Humanity had become the bridge between civilizations that had coexisted for millennia without truly communicating. The integration protocols are proceeding ahead of schedule, reported Director Morgan, who had been promoted from ambassador to head of the new Galactic Administration Bureau. 73% of former hegemony worlds have accepted human administrative oversight. The Trade Federation colonies are actually showing increased productivity under our economic management systems. Kane nodded, but his attention was focused on reports that troubled him far more than any diplomatic challenge. The mysterious signals from the galactic rim had grown stronger over the past 6 months, and deep space monitoring stations were detecting gravitational anomalies that dwarfed anything the Shadow Fleet could produce. Admiral Stone materialized in the holographic communication array, His image transmitted from somewhere in the void between galaxies where the Shadow Fleet maintained its deepest patrols. His face showed the strain of months spent in the darkness beyond known space, hunting for answers to questions that grew more disturbing with each passing day. "Mr. President, we've made contact," Stone announced without preamble. "The beings approaching from the rim aren't using ships in any conventional sense. They're manipulating space-time directly, folding reality around themselves as they travel. Our best estimates suggest they'll reach the galactic core within 72 hours. Kane felt his blood chill. "Contact, you mean communication?" "Not exactly communication as we understand it. They project thoughts directly into our minds, speaking in concepts that predate language. They call themselves the Ancients, and they're not happy about our use of their technology." Dr. Wright leaned forward, her scientific curiosity overriding her fear. "What exactly did they say?" Stone's image flickered as exotic radiation from the approaching entities interfered with the quantum communication array. They considered dark matter manipulation to be a forbidden art, abandoned eons ago because it threatens the fundamental stability of reality. "Every time we fire a dark matter weapon or fold space-time around our ships, we create tiny fractures in the fabric of the universe. They're coming to shut us down before we accidentally destroy everything." The war room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had achieved galactic dominance through technology that could potentially unravel existence itself. The weapons that had made them masters of space might also make them destroyers of reality. "Do they intend to destroy us?" Kane asked quietly. "Unknown. Their thought patterns are so alien that our best xenopsychologists can't interpret their intentions. But they've given us an ultimatum. Cease all dark matter manipulation immediately, or face consequences that our species couldn't survive." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, alien populations watched their skies with growing unease as gravitational distortions began affecting entire star systems. On the former hegemony capital world, Chancellor Torres observed her planet's 3 moons as they danced, in increasingly erratic orbits, pulled by forces that human science had inadvertently awakened. "Perhaps this is justice," she said to her aide, a young officer who had survived the destruction of the stellar dominion. "The humans gained power by unleashing forces they didn't understand. Now those same forces may destroy them." But her aide, whose family lived in one of the human-administered colonies, showed no satisfaction. "If the humans fall, what happens to the rest of us? We've become dependent on their technology and protection. Without the Shadow Fleet, the old rivalries will resurface. The galaxy will burn in civil wars that could last for centuries. On Earth, emergency sessions of the Global Defense Council struggled with choices that would determine the fate of every living being in known space. The Peace Faction, led by former Secretary General Martinez, argued for immediate compliance with the Ancients' demands. The military leadership, represented by General Adams, insisted that surrendering their only strategic advantage would invite alien rebellions that could destroy human civilization. "We've built our entire galactic policy around dark matter superiority," Adams argued, his weathered hands gesturing at tactical displays that showed human forces spread across dozens of systems. "If we deactivate the Shadow Fleet, we'll be outnumbered 1,000 to 1 by species that have every reason to want revenge." Martinez stood up from the council table, her diplomatic robes replaced by the simple clothes of a refugee coordinator. "And if we continue using technology that might destroy the universe, none of our strategies will matter because there won't be anything left to protect." President Kane listened to the debate while studying reports from every corner of human space. Colonial governors reported increasing unrest among alien populations who seemed to sense that humanity's dominance was threatened. Military commanders described equipment failures as dark matter manipulation systems began resonating with the approaching ancient presence. Even Earth's civilian population was affected, as sensitive individuals reported disturbing dreams filled with images of collapsing stars and dying galaxies. The decision came when Dr. Wright received a direct communication from the Ancients, transmitted through the quantum arrays she had used to monitor alien communications years earlier. The message bypassed all security protocols, appearing directly in her consciousness with an intensity that left her temporarily blind and deaf to normal sensory input. The young species has learned to play with forces it cannot comprehend, the ancient voice echoed inside her mind, carrying undertones of sadness rather than anger. We abandoned this technology millions of years ago when we discovered the price of its use. Every manipulation of dark matter creates entropy that cannot be reversed. Your weapons do not just destroy enemies, they slowly unravel the quantum foundations that hold reality together. The voice paused, allowing her to process concepts that human language had no words to describe. We offer a choice. Surrender the forbidden knowledge and accept guidance in technologies that do not threaten existence itself, or continue your current path and watch as everything you have built crumbles into quantum foam. When Dr. Wright regained her normal senses, she found herself surrounded by worried colleagues and medical technicians. But more importantly, she carried within her mind a complete understanding of what humanity had unleashed upon the galaxy. The dark matter weapons were not just tools of war. They were instruments of cosmic destruction that grew more dangerous with every use. "We have to stop," she told the assembled leadership, her voice carrying absolute certainty. "The ancients aren't threatening us, they're trying to save the universe from our ignorance." The final decision was made not in the halls of power, but in the depths of space where Admiral Stone faced the approaching ancient presence aboard the UES Nemesis. The massive flagship, humanity's greatest achievement, seemed insignificant compared to the beings that moved through folded space-time like living embodiments of fundamental forces. "All ships stand down weapon systems," Stone ordered, his voice carrying across the shadow fleet through quantum communication arrays. "Deactivate dark matter manipulation systems and prepare for shutdown of all exotic technology." The response from his fleet commanders was immediate and unanimous. Despite their fears about humanity's future without their technological advantages, they understood that some prices were too high to pay for victory. One by one, the shadow ships that had terrorized alien civilizations began powering down their reality-warping systems. The invisible fleet became visible as their dark matter hulls reverted to conventional materials. Weapons capable of creating artificial black holes were rendered inert, as their exotic power sources were safely contained. In the aftermath, the galaxy found itself transformed once again. The ancients, revealed as beings of pure energy, who existed partially outside normal space-time, established a new form of order that transcended the old divisions between species. Humanity, no longer dependent on weapons of cosmic destruction, was forced to earn its place through diplomacy, trade, and the gradual building of genuine trust. Ambassador Morgan found herself presiding over negotiations that would have been impossible during the age of Shadow Fleet dominance. Former enemies worked together on projects that benefited entire stellar regions. The fear that had maintained human supremacy was replaced by cooperation born of shared purpose. The final scene of humanity's transformation took place in the same crystal dome where the galaxy had once voted for human extinction, but now, representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered to sign the galactic accords that established humanity as mediators between the material civilizations and the transcendent ancients. President Kane, older now and bearing the weight of decisions that had nearly destroyed everything, spoke to an audience that included both his former enemies and his closest allies. "We learned that ultimate power is not the ability to destroy, but the wisdom to choose not to use that power. The Shadow Fleet protected us during our most vulnerable years, but true security comes from building bridges rather than maintaining weapons." Above Nexus 7, ancient monitoring stations maintained their watch over a galaxy that had learned to coexist through necessity and, slowly, through choice. The dark matter technology remained locked away in quantum vaults, guarded by both human scientists and ancient intelligences who understood its terrible potential. Humanity had achieved its greatest victory not through the application of overwhelming force, but by learning when to put down their weapons and extend their hands in friendship. The galaxy trembled no longer in fear, but with the possibilities that emerged when civilizations chose cooperation over conquest.